Ellen, I've been watching a series on TV called Winning Time: The Rise of the Lakers Dynasty. It's a chronicle of the personal and professional lives of the basketball players, the coaches, and the larger than life owners of the Los Angeles Lakers during the 1980s. Now, even if you're not a Lakers fan, and around here you're probably not, or even if you're not a basketball fan at all, it is a fascinating glimpse back in time to the cultural stew of America 40 years ago. In one scene that takes place in the summer of 1979, the young Irvin Magic Johnson, who would go on to an all star career, is being bid farewell by his family, who are gathered on the front porch of their home in Lansing, Michigan. Within the space of a few months, Magic Johnson had led his Michigan State University team to a national championship title, and he had been drafted in the first round by the LA Lakers, which at the time was a struggling franchise in a basketball league that had lower TV ratings than professional bowling, if you could believe that. But within a few years, Magic would help change all of that. But in this farewell moment at his family's modest home, as he prepares to make the long drive to California, a place very different from his home, with many worldly temptations and with more money at his disposal than he really knows what to do with, his rather stern mother approaches him. She looks him in the eye and says to him, "Remember who you are." Then she hugs him and turns away. Probably not the most warm and fuzzy scene to talk about on Mother's Day, but it's a good one and it's real. And that's why it is such a common scene. It's a scene that's played out over and over again in literature and on stage and on screen and in the Bible. You may or you may not have had a mother like Magic Johnson's, and whether you did or not, you may or may not have always followed the advice to remember who you are. Magic himself had moments when he struggled and he failed to remember. We've all had those moments, haven't we? But maybe we need to unpack what it means to remember who you are. It's sort of a combination of things. It's a call to stay true to your basic values, some guiding principles, to not forget that regardless of where you happen to be at this moment, you do have a history. So, in a lot of stories, we hear remember who you are as a way of staying grounded, especially for those who might find wealth or fame, to never forget their humble origins, to not forget the hard work or the sacrifices they've made, or that other people, mothers for instance, have made for them. To not become too comfortable or to start thinking that you're owed anything or to get too big for your britches. So remember who you are is about humility and perspective. Now, it might be a lot tougher, though, to remember who you are if your story includes abuse or neglect, or you were ever told that you would never amount to much. If you were ever made to feel that you were unworthy, not valuable, unloved. If that's true, and it's true for way too many people, then remembering who you are means reaching into your reservoir of inner strength or perseverance or survival skills, whatever it took for you to live through that hurt. And you may still be living through it because that kind of pain never really completely goes away. But what you're remembering about who you are is that even though you bear scars and those wounds might still be very raw, you are a survivor. And since none of us go through life unscarred, that means we're all survivors. To one degree or another, we are all recovering. So, remembering who we are is an acknowledgement that who you really are, is worthy and valuable and loved in spite of our hurts. And remembering that we're in the process of our recovery. Who we are is people who are healing. That's why, in one way or another, I talk about that pretty often. Around here, we do a lot of remembering about who we are. It's one of the primary reasons any of us seek out and finds a church community in the first place, to remember and perhaps to even rediscover who we are. To have it affirmed that here, if nowhere else in our lives, that who we are, who each and every one of us is inherently worthy and valuable and loved no matter what. No matter what our origin story looks like, no matter what has been done to us or what we have done, no matter our regrets, no matter our scars, just no matter. Here, even if it's for the first time, oddly enough, we can remember who we are. Now, we do that by sharing our stories with each other and supporting one another and by walking alongside each other. And we do it by hearing sacred stories like those from the Bible that help us attach our feelings to characters who are from a much different time and place and realize in doing that that there's nothing new under the sun, really, about being human and navigating life. Because we learned that people have always sought safety and acceptance and healing, belonging, dignity, justice, peace, community, and just something to hang our hat on about who we are and to be reminded of that. Several weeks ago, I took some time to study and practice meditation, which I am not naturally good at doing, but I'm working on it. I think that might be the first step to admit that you have a problem. When you think of meditation, you might picture someone sitting upright in a lotus position, legs crossed, hands on knees, eyes closed, perfectly serene and peaceful, and in some kind of heightened state of consciousness. My challenge in meditation is what's commonly referred to as monkey mind. Monkey mind is just another way of saying that random thoughts keep intruding when you're trying really hard to clear your thoughts, but you just can't help it. So while on the outside you may be sitting looking all serene, if you're like me, your brain is hard at work, pinging around from one thought to the next, wondering, how much longer do I really have to sit here because my lower back is killing me and my left leg is already asleep. And speaking of my aching back and my left leg, I need to pick up some more Advil. And that means one more thing I've got to remember to pick up at the grocery store. And isn't it weird how lately I've been forgetting where I have been parking my car when I'm at the grocery store? Oh, and that car needs to get inspected, and it's already almost the end of the month. And because it's already almost the end of the month, that means I have to Venmo some money over to my nephew because it's his birthday. And like the big loser that I am, I totally forgot about that. There are just so many things to think about and to not forget. And by that time, I couldn't be further away from meditating if I were on another planet. The cure to monkey mind is to recognize that it is happening at that time, to acknowledge the intruding thought, and to even say to that thought, "Hello, thought. I'm meditating right now, just breathing, so I'll deal with you later. Thanks anyway." And you just keep repeating that gently to yourself and cutting yourself plenty of slack every time one of those thoughts pops in until all you're doing is breathing in and breathing out. And if you're thinking about anything, it's just literally about the air that is filling your lungs, coming in and coming out. Now, I've met some people who they really think meditation is a waste of valuable time that you could be spending on something much more productive. That's the kind of society we're in. And maybe it's not even a proper activity if you're a Christian. They think it's not necessarily focused on anything spiritual or it's not prayer. I completely disagree with that. Meditation might not be for everyone, but I do see it as a form of personal prayer. It's a spiritual practice that takes practice, and it helps to know that even the most seasoned practitioners of meditation suffer from occasional monkey mind. But here's what makes meditation and prayer synonymous for me. First, it's the breathing, because breath is an amazing and sacred thing. We would know that if for no other reason than the creation myths from Genesis chapter 1. And by the way, I'm going to be talking more about this in a message later on the day of Pentecost, the first Sunday of June, when we celebrate the Holy Spirit and what that's all about. Anyway, it's the breath of God that forms order out of chaos. God breathes human life into what had been just a lump of clay. So, being consciously aware of breathing is an affirmation of God's creative power and of the very gift of life that's flowing into us. Secondly, meditation/prayer is a way of spending quality time every day focused on our intention. Now, you'll often hear that word, intention, if you take a yoga class or you're part of a meditation group. The leader might start off the whole thing by saying, find your intention or focus on your intention. Now, what that means is not your intention to pick up Advil at the store, to get your car inspected, or send your nephew some money. It's also not intention to get that home improvement project done, or to turn in that essay question, or to finish that book before the group meets tonight so that you don't look like a slacker again. No, I really didn't read those last 10 chapters. No, intention is much bigger than those monkey mind distractions. Intention is not a to-do list. Intention is to be drawn back to remembering who we are, to remember what's right here in this moment at the center of my heart that strengthens me, that heals me, that brings me joy, and that gives me hope. To remember the big picture that no matter what, I am valuable and worthy and loved. I once heard someone explain intention like this. It's an orientation of joy. Now, you could call it a feeling, but it's not some kind of fleeting thing. It's a knowing of yourself. And they suggested this exercise to think back to when you were growing up and what was it that brought you joy? What sparked your imagination? Or when you do that now with the people you love most, when you care for that you care for the most, or even when you imagine yourself being with them and doing that, how does that make you feel? That feeling of intention is a lot like freedom. That knowing of yourself that you are worthy, valued, and loved is freedom from all the monkey mind details. It's a focus on what matters most. So it's freedom from fear, freedom from regret, freedom from needing to always be right, freedom from worrying about what other people think about you. Who cares anyway? Freedom to mess up now and then because no one's perfect, and the freedom to be confident. Because the big picture of intention and what matters most and remembering who you are, that's far more powerful than our hurts or mistakes, or whatever the world has told us over and over again that we're lacking. We're lacking nothing, because the big picture of intention reminds us that we are all children of a loving God, and our intention is bound up in God's loving intention for each of us and for all of humanity. So, meditation prayer opens us to how connected we are to each other and how interdependent we are and how united we truly are in a common loving destiny. So one winter day, John tells us, Jesus was in the temple in Jerusalem when a crowd of people gathered round to ask him questions. They were anxious and afraid, wounded by a life of waiting and wondering who was coming to save them from their distress. Was Jesus the one to do all that? He tells them, in effect, those who know me, those who follow my path, those who remember who they are and to whom they belong, those people live an eternal kind of life. They already know that they are valuable, worthy, and loved, and that I will never leave them. I am one with them, he says, just as I am one with God. So let's breathe that in for a moment. Breathe in that intention. Breathe in that truth. Breathe in that freedom, that joy, that peace, that healing, that oneness. Breathe in that you belong, and breathe in to whom you belong always. Remember who you are.